Janie Pendleton, and I want to welcome you back to our little homestead. All right, today I've got a special request from one of the viewers. So how do you make one? Well, there's the version that takes 3 days, 2.5 to 3 days. It's very time consuming, but it's not that hard. I decided that I'm going to give up another secret recipe. I do have a way of making croissants that takes me about maybe 9 hours in total prep time, which beats 3 days. Okay, it beats 3 days. And most of that is because I put my dough in the refrigerator, usually overnight. So in the evening, like it is now, it's 6:30. I still have to make my Pullman bread. I still have to make communion bread for church on Sunday. And I still have to make my gluten-free bread for me. So today, I thought, well, since I've been teaching classes all day on bread baking, I needed to come home and make bread for my family for what they want. So I ran across somebody's comment yesterday, and they said, Jane, when you get a chance, can you make a video on how to make croissants? And I was like, like I said, Laura's video is just so fantastic. It would be easier for me to send you over there because her recipe is the same as mine. But she is so good at demonstrating and vlogging because her husband is the videographer for her. I couldn't beat that. But what Laura doesn't have, that I do have, is the Chef Janie version, quick version of a croissant. And I'm going to teach you how to do that today. This really is going to save you some time and energy, and you're going to get some results the same day. And we all know how some of us are impatient. So croissants are not a diet food. Now I do like my croissants, I like them buttery and tender and flaky. I don't like them quite as dry as you'll see them. And so that's when I came up with this recipe. They're not soft like a hamburger bun. Remember my hamburger buns that everybody loved? They're not going to be like that. But and they'll be a little drier than that probably. A little bit more of the French croissant style in texture. But I would say that mine are a little softer, maybe not quite as flaky, but they sure taste really the same. They really do, except for mine are just a hair bit sweeter, just a little bit sweeter, because I removed some of the sugar and I replaced it with honey and a little bit of brown sugar with natural sugars with molasses in it. So, so I add just a touch of a little bit of each of those. And of course, I use milk instead of water, which a lot of people will, and in France they do as well. Brandon, can you hear it? The windows are closed and you can hear it. Wow, let me see if I can do something about that. Okay, so normally, I don't send you to somebody else's video, and you know that, to find how to make something. Usually I'll just teach it to you. But Laura really knows her stuff. She's really learned a lot over the years. And she's really getting great at baking breads as well. So as far as that goes, I'm going to send you over to her channel to get the harder recipe, the 3-day recipe. It's just like I said, the video is so good that with me being my own videographer, I can't, and since we have the same recipe, I would be wasting my time. But here's to the quick and fast version of French cuisine, like croissants. They're very, very, very heavy in butter. Like I said, they are not a diet food. And this is something that you can do. I do suggest that you make croissants on a cold day or in a very air-conditioned room, because you want to keep the butter cold and you want to keep it firm when you're making the butter that blends in and you're doing all the folding and the rolling and stuff. This particular version calls for the butter to be a little softened, okay? So, which works great for blending it in as well, for this particular way that I'm going to show you how to do it, all right? So come along and let's make this quick version, the fastest version that I know of, to make croissants and still get great results, all right? And if you have a really great croissant recipe you'd like for me to try below, or that you want to share with others, then be sure and leave that recipe and the ingredients below. We would love to see it and try it. We would love to. And the way that you do it. We have a lot of people from outside the United States on our show, on our channel, that are watching, and they have handed down recipes, and they're very good at what they do. We have some excellent bread makers and bakers on our show. And and that are following along on this journey. And I just love hearing from you. So cheers to the home bakers and to the professional bakers out there. Let's get started. This isn't wine, by the way. It is my cherry grape juice that I steamed and that I canned. It is absolutely delicious. I'm going to bring you in now for a closer look at the ingredients. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is pull out our thermometer and we're going to check our milk. Here we have 1 3/4 cup of milk. Give it a good stir here. It's exactly 110 degrees. By the time we pour it inside this cool pan here, it will be perfect. You want this between 108 probably and 110, right in there somewhere. It works perfect. All right, so we're going to pour in half of the milk into the bowl, just half. Put in 1½ tablespoons of bread yeast. Now, if you're going to use quick rise yeast, you do not have to proof and wait 5 minutes. But if you use regular yeast, then you need to let the yeast sit in here with the sugar for about 10 minutes to let it proof. That's 1½ tablespoons of yeast. I'm going to blend that in with a whisk. Now I'm going to add in 6 tablespoons of sugar. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm going to keep out 2 tablespoons of that 6 tablespoons because I'm going to put in 1 tablespoon of packed brown sugar and I'm going to put in 1 tablespoon of honey. You can keep it to 6 tablespoons of regular sugar if you want to. Get it all in there. But this is what I like. This right here is what I like. I like that, just that touch of butter honey flavor. See that? We're just going to blend that right in there. Right now we have that other half of that milk where we need to be. We're at 104. That is perfect. We're still going strong here. I'm going to get all this yeast down inside this bowl. Now, if you've used regular yeast and your 10 minutes are up for proofing, 5-10 minutes for proofing is up, then I want you to take add 2 tablespoons of this instant milk powder. 2 tablespoons of instant milk powder. It really adds that extra, almost like a malty taste to it. Some people add a malt flavoring to their croissants. You just can't tell, but they're adding it. So that's my little cheat on that. Let that sit for about a minute. And to get soft flaky layers, I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of potato flakes. That's 2 tablespoons of potato flakes. Okay? That's to keep my layers that are going to be flaky. That's to keep them nice and soft. And also, your bread will last longer on the shelf. This makes a lot of croissants. We don't want to have to eat them all up, right away. An extra day or 2 for shelf life is always a good thing. Okay, I think that's blended nicely, and I think that those potatoes are nice and soft now. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to add 1 beaten egg. Matter of fact, I'm not even adding the whole thing. I added about 3/4 of a beaten egg. We're going to save this. We're going to put plastic wrap on it. We're going to drop in a little bit of milk in this. We're going to blend this up. All right, blend that in here. Most of this I'm doing by hand, so you can certainly make these by hand, but boy, using the KitchenAid mixer to knead this sure saves you some time. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to put the plastic wrap on this and set this in the refrigerator, all right? And that will be enough egg wash to brush the tops. Here I have 3 tablespoons of soft, unsalted, real butter. All right, let me cut this up here just a little bit. I'm only going to put in 1 tablespoon now. My salt cellar. I'm going to have 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt ready to go in here. Matter of fact, what I like to do is I like to take my first cup of flour and I like to actually blend the salt right there into that first cup of flour. Let's go ahead and put that other 1/2 teaspoon in there as well. Let's blend that kind of in there. All right. There we go. All right. So you can see I put a nice top layer then. You can't even see the salt on there. And if any salt falls in here, that's fine. It is not going to hurt this. And by the way, this is a 50-50 mix of half all-purpose and half bread flour. Most croissants are made with the higher protein, heavier bread flour. But again, I'm using my 50-50 mix like I always do. This works best for my humidity, my climate, my altitude, just all around. This works best for me. You use what works best for you. Experiment with it. Most of the fun in this is experimentation and having a good time with it. All right, so now this is when we're going to put on our dough hook. Now we've got 2 3/4 cups of flour and the 1 1/4 teaspoons to 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. Adjust it to how you like it. Some people just use 1 teaspoon. That's fine. This is a very forgiving recipe, and that's what I love about this. It makes such a beautiful dough. Beautiful croissants. You're going to see this. It's so easy, buttery and flaky. On low. Start putting that flour and that salt in here. There you go. It's 1 cup. Give it a chance to blend itself in. So there's 2 cups. And I didn't get my we're going to add our other half our milk in with a 1/4 cup of flour left. And I'm going to leave a little bit of it in here. The last 1/4 cup of flour. Alright, so let's play around with it. Let's see what we've got here. Ooh, thunder, you hear that? We're going to go through here and just stop it, and we're going to scrape down the sides, okay? Now, this is where getting the feel of your dough is really important, because this is where we're going to start adding flour and reducing milk, depending on how the flour and the bread looks. It should have that same tornado that I showed you, but probably not quite as sticky as my Pullman bread dough. So if you've made my honey white Pullman bread dough or any of my other breads, you know how I like my bread dough to feel just a little tacky and to get that tornado going on the bottom. That's when you know this is done, when you're using this recipe and you're using your KitchenAid or your dough hook mixer. By hand, it's still going to feel very soft, but when you put your finger into it, it will not come back. I'll show you here. We'll let it blend all that flour in before we decide. All right, I'm going to pour the rest of the milk in. I'm now going to add another full cup of flour. All right, I'm gonna add a half a cup at a time. Now we're just gonna start turning this into bread. Here's another half cup. I don't know, I think it's only gonna take a half a cup. Turn it back down. Just get a feel for it. Put that in. Let it come together. All right. That looks good right there. I'm happy with that right there. And now we're gonna let this knead for about 2 minutes. See here, it's cleaning the side of the bowl. It's making a little tornado now. But it's not climbing up too high over the top of this. If it is, then just take your hand and pull that back down. You do not want it climbing up too high. So just bring it back down. There we go. See the consistency here? That's perfect. That's perfect. There we go. Okay, see you back here in 2 minutes. Now we've just taken either a square or a round baking pan, it doesn't matter. We're gonna spray the bottom with just a little bit of cooking spray to hold down a sheet of freezer paper. There we go. Just, this won't rise much, but just in case it does, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a spray. Make it easier to work with. When I say a little, I mean just a little. And we're just gonna sprinkle this with just a little bit of flour, just a little bit. I'm gonna be brushing that all off here in just a minute. Unlock our machine. We're going to remove the dough. It's a nice, soft, workable dough. Look at that. Put a little bit of flour on it here. I'm working it here. There we go. That's going to come out. Put a little bit of flour on our work surface, just a little bit, not much at all. Get all that good stuff out of there. And we're just going to take, and I wanted to show you what a soft dough this is. Just kneading it just a little by hand. Push away from you and roll that away. Oh, that feels nice. It's moving and sliding like quicksand. It feels so good. All right. Get a nice feel to it. Give it a little pinch like this right here. Give it a little bit of a roll. This way, give it a little bit of a roll this way. Isn't that a nice, beautiful dough? Now, my honey Pullman bread dough kind of like slides around your fingers, like almost like slime. This is a little thicker with the yeast or with the flour than that. Just gonna keep rolling it until we get a nice smooth surface on it. Then we know we got it right. All right, I just coated a bowl with my misto sprayer oil. I dropped the dough in like this, gave it a turn, sprayed on a little more, sprayed my bonnet, cover up the bowl, and we're going to sit this in a warm place, and we're going to let this rise for about 1 hour. When we come back, we're going to punch this down, and then we're going to put it into a floured, parchment papered pan like this, cover it up with plastic wrap again, and then we're going to freeze it for 30 minutes. It'll raise a little bit, but not much. The croissant dough has risen, so we're going to take the bonnet off of it because we're getting ready to use it again, because I have the 2 loaves of Pullman bread dough here that I've got made and divided. Meanwhile, we timed this just perfect for the crescent dough. What we're going to do here, and I hope you can see this, is we're just going to take and we're going to punch this down gently. Punching bread doesn't mean punch it. It just means press it. It'll be nice to your dough. Be nice to it. We did add our quarter to our charity jar, and we'll add 2 more quarters. So that's 75 cents in the charity jar, and for our prayer of that God will help us and our bread to rise, to help us, and that we rise to the occasions and the challenges that the world sets before us as well. In Jesus' name, amen. And we said that prayer, and we let the dough raise, and you can see our yeast was good, and God blessed us with some beautiful, beautiful bread. Get this out of the bowl. Now I'm going to need this bowl here in just a second for these 2 items here. So let me... All right, so we have our dough here. Now what I'm going to do, so I don't get this confused, 2 different recipes. You can see the colors and the textures are definitely different here. That smells good. Oh yeah, this has more of a honey white wheat smell. This definitely has a croissant smell to it. It has a buttery smell to it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to shape this. We're going to give it a little bit of a roll. And we're just going to lay our dough right here. And we're going to press it down here just a little bit. Let me get that centered on the paper. There we go. Press it down a little bit because we want this to get chilled all the way through the center. Now this will rise a little bit in the freezer, but not a lot. And we're going to freeze this for 30 minutes. We're going to make this workable. Meanwhile, we're going to get our Pullman bread here. We're going to get it into. We're going to line this with 2 sheets of plastic wrap to protect it from getting any kind of freezer burn or anything like that. Do not put this in a deep freeze. Put it in your house refrigerator. And here's the baking bread. Okay, we're just going to flour our surface here. Just a light flouring. And you can see that our dough came out of the freezer after maybe more like 40-45 minutes is what I had it in there. And you can see it raised just a little, but not that much. And we're going to pick this up by parchment. And it kind of got kind of dry here on the sides. I was kind of worried about that. We're going to deflate it. Rub the flour off of that there. Trying to keep this as round as possible. And when the dough relaxes, you will know it. Just take a few minutes. And these should be out about like that right there. That's the way I want them. I'd say about 14 inches, 16 inches. Oops, starting to curl up here on the edges. When it does that, that usually tells me that it's ready to go. What we're going to do right here now is we're going to brush off that extra flour. We want rid of that extra flour, okay? We want this to adhere together. Now we're going to take some softened butter, real butter, and we're just going to take about 2 tablespoons here, and we want to go all the way to the edge. I usually leave it maybe about 1/4 of an inch from the edge because some of it's going to smear through anyway. And just using an icing knife here. And we're just working it on around. And we're going to do this for each layer until the last layer goes on top. And then when we get that far, I'll show you what to do. Now you don't want to work this too much. Oops. This worked better before I started messing with it, didn't it? Now the butter is what makes each of these layers so awesome. Gonna need just a little bit more here. This is what makes it buttery, flaky, and this is the fast way of doing this, and we're cutting days off our time here. Set this one aside onto a cookie sheet just like this right here, keeping it shaped big and as round as possible, okay? Guess what? Now we got to do this again. Now, we're going to bring this down here. I'm going to put this on the last layer, okay? Just kind of try to center it. Bring it around all the way to the edge, just like that. Give them a pull. You can put that in the refrigerator if you want to. It's no big deal. All right, we'll be right back. We're gonna keep going with this. I just put the Pullman bread in the oven. All right, like a pizza, I'm kind of using my hands to brush off that extra flour off the bottom. Then I'm going to take, look at that, stretch that right over the top. Yeah, that worked out perfect. Pinch any tears. Look at that. Now we're going to take, pinch the edges down just like that right there. Reform it. Get our circle. And we're going to press this together. We're kind of remaking our circle again. You seeing that okay? Nice and thick layers. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to carefully remove this and put this back on to a floured surface again. There we go. And we're going to keep this parchment. We're going to keep it on there. Just a little bit of flour, just a little bit here on top, a little bit on here, don't need a lot. We've sealed those edges, sealed any holes, and this is layered with that butter. Now we're going to take and we're going to roll this out to about 1/4 of an inch thick. That's what I said, about 1/4 of an inch thick. Look at that. And if you want, you can roll this out in a long rectangle and get your cuts this way, or you can do it in a circle, which is how I like to do this particular recipe. If I was doing the 3-day roll, I would do it in the rectangle. There we go. That butter is going to make those layers. Oh, is it going to make those layers? Just keep rolling it. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on here right now. I'm just kind of letting it kind of relax still. It's still pretty cold. Did your job right. Now, this is where you got to decide how big you want these puppies. How big do you want these crescents to be? I'll make them a little bit bigger. Yeah, a little bigger. I'm going to have that extra roll in it. It's really, really pretty. Look at that. You can do this. You can absolutely do this. Let's kind of shape this out just a little bit here. Give that one more roll. Let's shake the flour off this parchment paper. That's good enough. Sit that there for just a second. I'm going to spray the cookie sheet just enough to keep the parchment paper stay down, and I'm giving it just a very light coat of spray. All right. And we did that with 2 of the baking sheets. A little flour on my pizza wheel, and we're going to cut this in half this way. We're going to cut this in half this way. Then we're going to cut it this way, and we're going to cut it that way, and then we're going to put a 1-inch cut here, a 1-inch cut here, and a 1-inch cut here. All right, let's do that for, look at the layers. You see the layers in there? Perfect. Same thing here. That one's going to be extra big. Okay, enough room here. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take these. I need some room to show you here. A little bit of flour, not much. And I just use my hand, and I just kind of stretch this out just a little bit. And you want to take this here, pull it apart like this, start rolling inwards, and then take your thumb like this, and then start rolling this direction. Kind of pulling as you roll a little bit. Some people roll tight, some people roll loose, and I just pin it like that. Now, isn't that beautiful? And you can see, look at all the layers that it's going to have. Now you can take, and you can sit these on a lightly greased cookie sheet, just like this, or you can take and bow them together. And what I like to do is I like to just give them a little bit of pinch, and then when they're swelling, they will pinch up and stay in their little shape, okay? Or you can just kind of go like that, all right? So either way, it doesn't matter. I like them to be like that, all right? So let's continue making them. We're going to let these raise. We're going to let these raise for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we're going to pop them in the oven. Again, I'm just Look at these layers. And put my thumb, roll in, and then when you hit that split, kind of start rolling out and kind of pull. A little bit of water on your fingertip right there to get a little bit wet. Bring it on around and kind of brush that tight like that right there. And again, you can pinch them. Not necessary, but you can. These are absolutely stunning. Roll in and roll out as you pull. A little water. That should hold them right there. Put a little flour on that. There we go. Nope. How are we looking here? Are we at the 180, 160, 180? We're there. We're going to check this one. Go 365. I don't want to up it too much. I don't want to burn these croissants. I'm going to cover these. I'm going to cover these with plastic wrap. I got plenty left over here from all the other stuff I've been doing. And I'm also going to cover these with a towel. And I'm going to let these raise for about 30 minutes. Same thing, we're going to cover them up with plastic wrap. Tell me those aren't beautiful. And if you're making them along with me right now, then let me know below how it's going for you. Let's do this journey together. Almond bread is cool. It's tender. Look at that. Just wonderful. Wonderful. Perfect loaves every time. I love that dough. All right, let's check on our croissants. They've risen for about 25 minutes. They look like they are ready to go. Temperature. Aren't those beautiful? Put these in the oven. We're going to put this on for about 20 to 25 minutes till they're nice dark golden. But here's the deal, okay? We're going to turn these around halfway through baking. Go throw some flour. Go have some fun. I feel like Bob Ross when he says, go throw some paint. Go throw some flour and enjoy it and have a great time doing it. Tell me that these aren't, let me get my hands on one. Tell me that these aren't just beautiful. And just think, we didn't have to wait 3 days to eat one. Okay, they're going from this to that right there. And right there's the size of one of my fingers. That's those things. Look at that one in the background. It is huge. All right, let's put this back up. I just wanted to show them to you. They're huge. See how they look? Look at those. Aren't they beautiful? Those are gorgeous, just gorgeous. So give my version, okay, this is my recipe. Give my version of quick one day, just a few hours. I think I've got, what time did I start? So I've got 4 hours in these. So 4 hours into these crescent rolls, plus I also made Pullman bread, 2 loaves of 13-inch loaf, honey white Pullman bread too. And this made 12 crescent rolls. Now we'll be back in just a minute and we're going to taste one. This is hot, but this is just beautiful. Meanwhile, I'm going to brush some of these while they're warm. Just a little bit of butter, just to give it a nice soft crust. I know you already got that egg yolk on there, but to be honest with you, I like the softer crust. You wouldn't like to eat one of those right there. Oh my word. Mmm. The flavor is excellent. A little bit of my homemade strawberry jam. You can see the layers. Remember, this is not the 3-day version. This is like the 4-hour version. It's gonna be a little different.